Welcome, everyone. Hello, my friends, and thank you for joining us at our second show of Spiritual Toolkit. My name is Brock Ford, and I am your host. And joining me on my team today are producers Reverend Michael and Peter Millar, and a shout out to our network founder and director, Mr. Robert Brzezinski. Thank you all for helping me put this show on. The idea for this show came from my sincere desire to be of support and a voice for the disenfranchised, the struggling, and hurting people that are within my reach, to offer spiritual and ethical practices that helps others transform their lives, relationships, and careers. My hope is that we can support others on their path to their passion, dreams, and best life, building a bridge of understanding, healing, and thriving for all. So we will have guests from all walks of life discussing real life and navigating its twists and turns so that we all may live triumphantly. So today, my guest is a very good, wonderful friend of mine that I've known for about 4 years. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information about her. There's a lot to go on, so I'm going to let her talk about it, but I'm going to give you some of it right now. But my guest is Melissa, who I call Missy Higginbotham. She is the Director of Educational Services for Emerson Institute, and she teaches and develops curricula, and it's the Emerson newsletter, which is called New Thoughts. She has a very interesting and long list of spiritual and professional accomplishments, and some of them are esoteric studies, which covers new thought, mysticism, shamanism, plant medicines, aromatherapy, crystal healing, and y'all, this one, color puncture. Missy, you're going to have to help me out with that and what that's about when we get to talking. She has also taught workshops on vibration and consciousness in Ireland, the Netherlands, Peru, Canada, and the US and Spain. She's also the author of Voicing the Sound Eternal, a book on sound healing and consciousness. She has a music degree from California State University, and listen to this, y'all. She has a master's in logistics from the United States Air Force Institute of Technology. I can't wait to get into that. She also received her doctorates in spiritual studies and religious studies from Emerson Institute and Doctor of Divinity from the American Institute of Holistic Theology. My dear friend is also an ordained religious science interfaith minister and has a wonderfully supportive husband that I just adore. His name is David. So with that said, everyone, let's meet Missy Higginbotham. Hi, sweetheart. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Well, thank you for asking me. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, Brock.
Sure. So give us just a little bit of a paragraph, sort of to sum up that bio that I just said, and help us understand what that color puncture is as well.
Oh, the bio, gosh. I look back at what I've done. It's like, wow. I'm amazed because I've always loved to be creative. It's like having to do something and you dream about something. I tell people, what's your spark? When they come to Emerson, I go, what's your spark? And what have you always wanted to do? And what have you never given yourself permission to do? And let's follow that rabbit hole. Let's be Alice in Wonderland. Let's be it, because isn't it all about the quest? I used to love to listen to the music, follow that star, right? To dream the impossible dream, and to follow that star wherever you go. And so many people, when they get older, they forget about that star. They forget about following that dream because they get caught up in the stuff. And so it's like I can remember going outside and standing by the car with my dad, and we'd look up at the stars. And there'd be that feeling of what is there? There's something, look at the stars at night, and you get the thought of something greater telling you that it's time, it's time, it's time. And so many of us got that feeling, and we didn't recognize it, that it was the call. It was that call. And so it's when I was a little young, when I was real young, my mom did not spare the rod, and so I'd go to church to kind of get away from that. But at the same time, Sunday school was, I love the music, and they would ask, well, what songs do you want to sing? And there were two that, there were really three that I always loved. one was all creatures of my God and King. There's something about all creatures and singing a hallelujah, hallelujah. And and then there was one about dare to be brave, dare to be true. Now that's the only part that I remember that song. And the other one was I would be brave, I would be true, for there are those that love me. I would be brave, for there are those who care. And so, isn't it interesting, because throughout my whole life, it's like I've gotten, I never knew I was clairaudient, because you always think that clairaudience is the voice in the night, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the songs that come on, or the music that comes through you, that gives you that the lyrics give you messages. And so I go, it's things like that that say, that you're part of God's creatures, and you need to remain true to yourself, and you need to be brave, and no matter what life gets to you, or what happens, it's like if you get down off that horse, then you need to get back up. And so uh and so then I went off to college, uh and then I got married too early, because I wanted to get away from home. And then I got divorced because it was the wrong thing to do, to get married. But and then that's when I went into the Air Force. It was like I figured that there was something outside of Fresno, California,
Well,
where
how did you think that thought, I'm going to go in the Air Force? Where did that come from?
my parents always talked about being in the Army Air Corps, and how it was. I don't know. It was always sounded like that was a life changing for them. When you get out of what you've always done, it's like, how can you go back to the farm when you've seen gay parade?
Mm-hmm.
If when you get out of your cage, when you get out of all the box, the square hole and the square box that everybody wants to put you into, and you go somewhere different, and you see that there's something outside of your own small purview, then it's exciting. It's, you see different people try different foods, you see something outside of the 25 miles around your farm,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I was there, and all I could see was the same, day in and day out, day in and day out, the same, same. And I thought there had to be something different. And I was getting a degree in music. I was voice performance, and I couldn't see just doing the same thing day after day. And I was vocal director of a dinner theater. I had a kids group that was on TV, but all I could see was doing the same thing day in and day out, day in and day out. And I thought, well, maybe I could go in and do something different. I could go into the service for at least a couple years and see if there was something different to do. I I felt like, I guess it was a call. You get that sense of restlessness. You get that sense of there must be something else. There must be something I'm supposed to do, something else. This can't be it, So that a lot of times is the call. And the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talks about, the starts out with something like that. It's that there must be something else, and so you go out searching for yourself, searching for something else, searching for something different. Sometimes people never do, and then they wonder later on, well, what if I had all the what ifs? And I didn't want to have, when it was time for me to leave the planet, to have that what ifs, and 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 because that's what gets dispiriting, and that's what makes you sad.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes you depressed, because you've essentially given up your own sense of power to something else, what other people have said that you should be or not be. Oh, your ideas are weird, Missy, or your energy is too big, Missy, for us, or you're too loud, Missy, for us, or you're too different.
Yeah, I've had that too, sweetheart.
Yeah, I
So
didn't, and
I
I
understand.
didn't want to be just like everybody else, but I didn't know what I didn't know what. And so I joined the Air Force. And the thing is that, the military have these catchwords: be all you can be, service. Isn't that what we're here to do? Before we come in, we're told we're going to be serving life. We're going to be serving on God's team, right? And and
Exactly.
and there's and other things about community, right? Brotherhood, sisterhood. There's all these code words, and so we're searching for something that we've been encoded to do. And so I went into the Air Force, and here I thought I was pretty liberal, because I was from California, right? And I loved Berkeley. I had an older sister who was at Berkeley, and that was the time where you're burning your bra and everything, right? and then I went to South Carolina. Now, South Carolina in 1983, it was like, holy moly, and found out how conservative I really was, because I was one of the first females going into the service at that time, in that period of time, and it was like, oh, golly gee whiz shuckins darn, And so it was a very interesting time. And uh, and I had to figure out, how do you operate, and because it's very easy to get disempowered. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would find myself, when people would say something to me, like, you would feel disempowered, because you would say, why do they think that? Or why would they think, me being married, why would I want to do that? You know,
Right.
you'd be surprised how many people are thinking that you're that you're
Yes.
that you're willing to walk out with them even though you're married,
Ex-
and so I'd be looking at myself thinking, what gives them that idea that I would do that? Thinking it was me. And so you learn, as you go along, that it wasn't me, it was them. It was their
Exactly.
perception. So you learn a lot of spiritual lessons, no matter where you are. And but I got to learn a lot of issues around power, about
Mm.
empowerment, and about how to operate in no matter where I was. I got to learn that, and it wasn't always easy. I would go home and think, okay, since I would think to myself, okay, if I feel disempowered when they say this, I need to make sure that I have this thought. You know, uh, One of my thoughts was, finally, I would say, oh, well, thank you so much, but I'm into quality, not quantity. And the look on their faces would be,
Uh-huh.
you know, and but I can remember going overseas, and I was and my mom and my parents now were in religious science practitioner training, and mom sent me. I had the Prospering Power of Love by Catherine Ponder, and I had the Science of Mind textbook, and I took them with me and things, and I remember reading about the word blessing came to my mind. So
Mm.
I had that in my mind, and I was reading a lot of science fiction fantasy, and I was reading a lot, and there was a lot in there about the hero's journey. You didn't always see
Mm.
it as the hero's journey, but it was sort of like Star Wars, but in the beginning, where you always had the hero, and they would go out and do something, and then there would, bad things would happen, and they'd be beaten down, but then they'd laugh or something, and the bad guy would disappear, and he'd be given it, and the guy would be given a gift, and then he'd go home, and it was just and you could equate it. You could see the spiritual gleanings from it, and I would read that, and then I would read the textbook at night, one page at a time, but what was really interesting is I can remember having an issue with this person, and and I can remember my colonel telling me and saying, "Missy, you need to be nice to this lady." And I said, "But sir, she doesn't know her ass from a hole in the ground." And he says, "That may be so, Missy, but you need to be nice to her." And that kind of brought me up short. She was a captain, I was a lieutenant. So it was, I had gone from being an airman, from being a two-striper to going to officer training by that time. And so I started blessing. So I started, that I guess was my first conscious focus on what can I do to do things, and it started working. I would bless them, and I would start blessing people, and actually made it. I said, well, I'm going to do a focus. That became my ministry, kind of inward, for doing that. And
Well, let me jump in there really quick because I have a question for you.
okay.
So, one, when I found out that you were in the Air Force like 3 or 4 years ago, it just blew my mind. And it
Mhm.
was like, wow, I just didn't see you doing that. And then now that I've known you these years, I can definitely see that. And that was your ministry. That was your first ministry, sort of, was
Mhm.
being in the Air Force and what you did and how you were able to cope with the challenges that you had. Which brings me to, how did you get from the Air Force to Emerson? Was that the next step?
No, I found that I liked being in charge of all those men.
Well, of course you did. I can see that.
Well, it was training in stepping into one's power, and how to use power without abusing power,
Mm.
and how to work with people, because you learn not to be a dominating power, even though sometimes you have to say, read my lips. I had to do that a couple times as a commander when I did not want alcohol on the property, when I finally had to say, read my lips. But and I try to look at the divine flame within everybody. So if someone, I had to court martial someone because they were messing around with 13-year-olds, and uh and I had to do them a bad conduct discharge, and so I wouldn't. But I was very aware, if I thought of them as a scumbag, that energy of my thought, which can create, would go through my energy field first. And
Uh-huh.
so I had to focus on the divine flame. And I had done some divine flame work all over since I was a young lieutenant and captain, going. I mean, I even went to Ascension Island, which you don't usually go to, but it's this little island down in the Atlantic Ocean between was it Africa and South America. And but I would set the flame of transformation. I would land, and I would just imagine that this flame was anchored that would transform thought forms. But it was focusing on not the personality, but on the flame within them. And he would say, well, why are you doing this to me? And I would say, I'm not doing it to you. I am just here to give you the results of your choices. You had choices. You knew you could do this or that. So I was trying to teach a different way of leadership,
Mhm.
you know, and be fair and just, you know, and so that was, and so when I finally retired, finally ended up retiring out of the Pentagon. I was at the Pentagon and I was in Washington D.C. area during 9/11, and then I was on the Joint Staff, and I was responsible for the donations going into Iraq, and the policy and writing and doing a lot of stuff up there. And so I then went and became the liaison for the commander for U.S. Transcom, and the DC, for him and for the Washington D.C. area, and then retired in 2016. I had a dream. My dad said, "You need to get out of the D.C. area. Things are gonna happen." And so I retired, and then we finally left in 2019. But in 2015, my sister, Dr. Sandy, called and said, who's in charge of ecclesiastical studies for Emerson, and she said, because I had told her I'm not going to get a doctorate unless it can be in consciousness studies. And she called me and says, "Hey, Emerson, you need to check out Emerson." So I went in Emerson. They had spiritual studies. So I got hold of Angie, and Angie had been a family friend for a long time. And
Angelo being the founder of
Dr. Angelo
Emerson.
Costello being the president of Emerson Theological Institute. And the spark happened. I was doing 4 classes at a time. I had one book in the bedroom. I had another book in the living room. I had one in the bathroom. I had one in the kitchen. Because when it would happen, I would read one, and then while part of my brain was, let's say you're reading the textbook, right, and you want to break, so you might read the Lost Mode of Prayer. You might read something that's a little bit lighter, and then you might read something that's maybe Prospering Power of Love. Something that's even a little lighter. And so then when I was doing all the homework, I was sending in like 4 classes at a time, and and so I did my practitioner work. I'd been doing Science of Mind for years. I carried the stuff with me. I was doing science. I was doing practitioner work without being a practitioner, because I followed the 5 steps, because my parents were religious science practitioners and then ministers, RSI, and so I knew how to do it, and I had taken it into my hands-on healing work, which I did for many years, and sound healing, and so I did that, and then became a practitioner, and then became religious science minister. It all seemed so natural, and it just went bam, 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 bam. And I went home to California to see family. Went up to see Angie in Oakhurst, and I said, I want to work with Emerson. He didn't believe me. And then a year later, I started writing classes, and he started approving them. And then I just started sending them classes, and that's how it all started. I started sending them classes, and then people started wanting to take them. And you can really only teach your own class. You can only, you have to develop classes.
Right.
Well, I ended up on, now I've developed over 70 classes, and I've revised a bunch more. And by that time, I guess I'd proven myself, both in consciousness and in what I was doing, and people were wanting to take the classes, and so that's kind of how I got to Emerson. It was like I told Angie, but so many people want to become teachers at Emerson, but the thing is teaching the long distance is you kind of have to start out with building your own classes.
Well, speaking of that, I know that from our discussions, because Missy and I get together usually, we haven't lately, but usually we get together about once a week and we talk and we go over things together. But I know from our friendly discussions that transcendence is a big thing for you, and a big part of your ministry, and that you even helped me do a talk and a meditation about transcendence. That I am love, I am truth. Can you go into a little bit about transcendence and sort of go from there into the Hermetic practices? Because transcendence I know about, but maybe some of our viewers don't. But I don't know anything about the Hermetic practices. So,
well, I don't really want to talk too much about Hermetic practices because it's too big. But
give us what it is. Just that's all we need.
Well, Hermetic practices were originally based on Hermes, but Hermetic practices are I don't really want to go into that, because
talk about transcendence.
It's a whole system by itself. Hermetic practices could be the Kabbalah, it could be Tarot, it could be it could be the Kabbalion, it could be there's some science of mind, some of this, and see, the thing is that some of the consciousness behind the Hermetic practices is the same as science mind. There is only one God, and you're connected to it. And that you have your own direct connection to the divine. Another part of Hermeticism is that involution, evolution, that there is the energy coming back, that the divine sends out, and you can call it God, you can call it whatever, and that sends out the energy here in order to create. And then evolution is when it's the breath going back to the divine, the in-breath and out-breath of God. The law of gender is another Hermetic principle, So the practices of Hermeticism is based on, you see, the Hermetic principles. That's why it's every that's like saying talk about Christianity, you know.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying? So you have Hermetic principles, which are involution, evolution. You know, the part about the oneness. You know, the law of gender, that there's female and male, and you have to come into harmony and balance. You know, the polarization, the law of polarity. So those are all having to do with Hermetic principles, which everybody, different organizations have their practices built on. You see,
I see.
that's why I can't tell you about the practices. It's too big to talk here. But now transcendence.
Well, hold on with transcendence for a second, because I'm getting a note from my producers. They want to take a break.
Oh, absolutely. We can
and then
take
we'll
a
come
break.
back and we'll talk about transcendence, because I know you love to talk about that too.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody, we'll take a quick break, probably about 2 minutes, I think. And we'll be right back in a moment with Reverend Dr. Missy right here, y'all, on the Spiritual Toolkit on New Thought Media Network. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience, or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
And I believe we're back with Spiritual Toolkit on New Thought Media Network. And Missy, we were talking about transcendence.
Yeah, and you went
Let's go into that a little bit.
Well, it came to me, you know, I was in meditation. I was actually talking to a student of mine, and he mentioned something, and I go, "Oh, are you thinking about families of consciousness?" And that's when this whole thought about Emerson's future came, the future of Emerson, and I started getting these thoughts about transcendence, levels of consciousness, and because life's a spiral journey. You know, we ascend in consciousness as we travel back home. You know, it's infinity, right? It's eternal, and so in order not to get lost in materiality and density, I always think that we have to focus on transcendent levels of consciousness, and so what are they? And Angie and Sandy and I, Dr. Sandy West and Dr. Angela Pizzello and I, we got together and we started thinking about, I had put some down in a circle, what those aspects or facets of mastery are, states of consciousness. Because on some of them, you'll see in different areas, in religious areas, you'll see that you think they're aspects of mastership, but there's really results of the aspects of mastership.
Results is what you said?
Yeah. I mean, like judgment is not an aspect of, that's a result of something. It's not an aspect of mastership. It's not, I don't get to be an expert in, I mean, I guess I could become an expert in judgment, but, discernment is a higher level of
Yeah.
I would say. And so it's, so transcendence is moving, and I wanted something that we could focus on to get people from a state of becoming to a state of beingness.
Mm.
In the old mystery schools, it would be saying, can we get them from the outer court to the inner court? Mm-hmm. And so we developed a wheel that, and then we developed I am claims, I am the frequency of the divine emanating out and touching all with, and it was called the transcendent I am,
Okay.
Developed, and it's and our 12 areas are love, grace, truth, impeccability, trust, reverence, freedom, authenticity, integrity, enlightenment, harmony, and transcendence. And see, things like integrity isn't all about, a lot of people think, integrity, that's sort of like, being honest or something. But I used to have dreams, and I would be, because a lot of them, since I went around in the military and I was always on the move, I never had external teachers so much. They were all in the dream state, and I'd be told that integrity is staying true to the core of who you truly are in truth. Yes. And it's like you have this pillar, what I call the God pillar inside. You have the spark, the God spark here, and if you allow that spark to get bright, you could breathe into it and allow it to go down to the earth and anchor as a pillar in the earth. Not these little rootlets that people tell you about, but anchor a pillar, and then anchor up to your thought of eternity, and then that's what I would hold on to, that was my pillar, my God pillar. And if you stay true to that pillar, that integrity, that energy, that frequency of the God source. I mean, that flame is a divine flame. That's what's animated you. It's sometimes people call it the Christ flame, the divine flame. It is what it is. God is, God is, God is. So you stay true to that impeccability, and that makes you authentic. That's your authentic, then your authentic self, and that's where the love emanates. And when that goes out, that's what radiates. That's what radiates as your field. Yes. And that's what makes everything new. That becomes the vibration of truth. And it's not, and as a result of the vibration of truth, which you are and radiate, you don't lie. It's not the other way around, that because you don't lie, you are truth. It's because you are truth with a capital T.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So how can someone get started? Like, say that someone really wants to be more present with themselves and with the world, and to transcend, their challenges, their grief, and things of that nature. What's some steps that people that don't know maybe what we're talking about so much, maybe this is their first experience with it. You and I have been in this, and matter of fact, you taught me about transcendence yourself. So thank you. But what's some steps people can take to move towards that?
One of the first things that I was doing back in Ohio, back in the 80s, during the New Age movement, crystals and everything, medicine wheels,
aromatherapy,
and drumming and aromatherapy. Oh yeah, you give it to me. I loved it. It was like a candy shop. But was the inner was understanding that there is that divine flame. And then I would see a mini me, a mini Missy in that flame. And I put a chair there. And I said, and at first I would put a chair, then I saw a divine, and I put a flame in front of me. It was almost like I built my own altar or campfire. You could do whatever you want. But I said, and then I thought to myself, I have all these thought forms. If that's a divine flame, then let me take these thought forms. I would go like this kind of in my energy field, and I would throw them into the flame. Here's all the resentment, the anger, and I would just throw them into the flame. And then with my creative imagination, I would see it explode into like white light, and I called it the divine light, the Christ light, whatever. It is what it is, it's the light of transformation. So I would put a flame there and throw it into another. There are different frequencies of light you can use. You can use, you don't want to use bright white, you could use a golden white would be nice, or you could use a violet, or you could, but it's gold is a very divine color, and but you can and see it. And then the next step I said, oh, well, let me put the flame on the altar, and I called it the eternal flame, you see. And then I built, I said, oh, well, if this is my sacred space, then let me build it as a temple. And I built an inner temple. You see, and so that's what I did. And then when I would do invocation work, like I am the light, or I am this, because what you say after I am, you're calling on I am is your Christos authority, is your divine authority. You say it down through your heart chakra, and you are naming yourself as whatever you're saying. Right. And so I would do it here, and that was a toolkit. That was in my toolbox, of doing that. And but the flame work really helped me, and it also helped me with staying centered here, because it's so easy to go out of body, to go somewhere else, and you need to stay present in your body. I had a teacher that told me, they said, Miss, if you don't stay in your body, you can't ascend, because it's your, And I go, oh, you have to be here if you want prosperity. You have to be here because you're bringing it into the physical. You have to be in your body.
Receiving it here where we are.
Your body is the vehicle that you were given to learn your lessons, to bring your soul for soul expansion, and so it's all starts here in the heart space, where you can build your temple, where you can build your flame. It can be a place by a stream. It can be, I have a meadow. I have a unicorn guide, I have a unicorn there, and so we meet by the meadow under this big tree, and it's whatever you want to make it, because it's your creativeness and life. I mean, the universe is unlimited. God is in you as you, and it works through you. So it's easier to focus on the aspects of the creator, because you are it. But one of the easiest things to do is what I call a pocket prayer, or in religious science, a pocket treatment, is when you don't know what else to say, is 2 words of truth. God is. So you can be here, and if you see something happening by the side of the road, an ambulance going by, or someone's hurt, and you don't know what to do, you can say it out loud, or you could say it in your body mind, not in your head, but your whole mind, which is your consciousness. God is. Another is let there be light. But God is, because that's truth. In the beginning was Word, Word was God. God is. So you could say, I am Word, through something, because you're saying, bringing the action of the divine. You could say divine order is there now. And you can do that with storms. The tornadoes are coming in, and you can say, I now ask for divine order in that storm system.
Mhm.
And I give thanks and let it be so. God is, so God is the easiest tool in your tool chest. You're
Mhm.
knowing that God is in everything, and it's not your responsibility to fix anything. You're just here to know that God is,
And to experience it.
and to
Mhm.
and to experience it. And it doesn't
And to
mean,
put it back out in the world.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, we don't always experience what we consider the greatest thing, but the thing is, if we can see,
Mhm.
if we can learn something from it, and flip the grid so that it goes from a, and see what, that's one that's been a hard lesson for me, but I what's the gift? And usually the gift is a more powerful me. It's taking my power back, and it's not blaming anybody else. It's not someone else's fault. It's like cleaning up my own messes, you
Mhm.
know, and everything you learned in kindergarten, and clean up your,
You know,
yeah.
I did a talk recently on, well, I am as well, because that's very important, but spiritual and ethical living. And that's a big, huge talk or I guess, topic for me that I want to get out into the world. But when we realize what you were saying in a different way, in my mind, when we realize that we are the one, we are connected, we are God expressing, there's only the one, then that thought, that decision, I say in my talk, is that changes everything for us. It changes the way we behave, the way we talk, the way we put out into the world. It changes our energy, that's our aura around us. So that when we believe we are one with everything, then it makes us have humility. It helps us to have compassion. And it helps us to see God in the other people. And it raises them and they feel it and then they want more,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I like the fact when you said compassion, because one of the things that people forget is to have compassion for themselves. I used to think, gosh, I can get bruised with kicking myself, because we're perfectly imperfect, and we don't do things all the time like we would want to, and we have to be okay with that. We get because of our history. We we have to let our history go. God is through our history, and we have to say, okay, God, take the history. Take the history, and it's let it go, because it is what it was, and it's made us what we are today. And we have to realize that we have our level of understanding, we have our level of love and compassion in this
Mhm.
moment,
Mhm.
and just because of all the lessons we learned. And uh, and God, I wouldn't want to go through it again, but a lot of the stuff, but
But you came through it, and you came through it well.
and I understand situations and people where they are a
Mhm.
lot better, and that's good. And you can, and you don't, you it's easier than to go from judgment to discernment, to saying, okay, it's okay, you
It
know.
is. It
It
is.
is, yeah.
And
And
my
that's
mentor,
a
Martha Creek,
responsibility for them.
exactly. My mentor, Martha Creek, says something to the effect, and she says it different ways for different reasons, but something to the effect of, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, or sometimes I do these things and sometimes I don't.
Hmm.
But the point is that when we can remember to connect, when we're maybe in a reactive state or a sad state or a depression or something of that nature, or something has just happened, when we can remember those steps of the transcendence will, I am, we can change the script, and it changes our heart, and it changes our aura, and it changes the people around us as
Yeah.
well. So, but
Hmm.
it's sometimes it's really hard because I slip myself, and it's, I can react like that. You can ask Peter, but but I can react, and then I go, oh, I'm reacting, and I remember that transcendence, and what is my love, and what do I want to put out right here,
Hmm.
So, um, one thing I want to know before we go, we've got about 6 or 7 minutes left. Give me just a brief description, because I want to ask you a couple more things. What is color puncture? I don't know what
Color
that is.
puncture is acupuncture using a pen that has colored crystals on the end. They're crystals that are not ones from the ground, but they have been made by what's the company that does those really neat crystals for chandeliers? You know, it's
I don't know the
I
company.
can't remember, but anyway, they're specifically made colors, and it's a system using Korean acupuncture points, and it's done by developed by Dr. Peter Mandel out of the Mandel Institute of Switzerland, Austria, and Germany.
Mhm.
So that essentially, in a nutshell, is what it is. It's
Thank
acupuncture
you.
in color.
Thank you. I mean, I was trying to figure out what I
Yeah,
thought.
Swarovski. That's it.
Swarovski.
Swarovski.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And then I've got 2 more questions for you, and I think that'll take us out. Would it be okay if we discuss just a little bit about our project together with Emerson?
Oh, sure.
Because let me just tell people really quick that Missy and Angelo, as I call him, she calls him Angie. She goes much further back with him than I do. But Missy and Martha Creek and Angelo Pizzello, along with his wife Stella, completely helped me transform my life and got me into Emerson and on a new path and all those different types of things. And so I want to give back to Emerson because it's very dear to my heart, and I call these people my family. So we're going to start a project together, and I'm very excited about it. But Missy, why don't you want to announce what it is?
Yeah. Well, Brock is developing, and he's some curriculum that he's been taking out and to different centers having to do with diversity, and so he's looking at different areas and starting to outline the needs out there of different centers, different organizations, of what type of diversity programs are required, and so what it's heading towards is diversity programs for Emerson. So he and I are going to be. It's going to be mostly Missy on the sideline watching Brock bring his dream into realization and manifestation, but the diversity programs, so that we can offer this to the community. And we don't know what it's going to look like yet, because that's one of the things. What does Source want? You know, what is needed out there? And so he's doing the research, and as he does the research, he's building the building blocks to support that research, and in order to feed the community. So that's what we're working on right now.
Exactly. Thank you. And I'm so honored to be able to do that with you guys. And it just touches my heart. And I believe that through this diversity department, which also includes civil and human rights, it's not just the LGBTQ areas, but I truly believe it's going to help the students that want to take those classes, maybe because they're looking for transformation in their life. It's going to help parents and family members be able to understand and know what it means for their children to be trans or LGBTQ and things of that nature, and how to use spiritual principles to interact and to have a wonderful relationship with each other. So I'm very excited about it. We could talk the rest of the day about it, but at any rate, and I guess Michael and Peter, we're getting close, I believe. First, I just want to say, Missy, you're a wealth of information, and we just spewed it all out there today. And I hope people were able to grab some of it and keep it, because what you know inside of that beautiful head of yours just amazes me sometimes. But at any rate, so will you come back and let's go deeper, maybe into 1 or 2 subjects that I really believe would really help. And then as we get closer, maybe we can premiere the diversity department and things like that going forward. But at any rate, much love to you. I love you so much with all my heart. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. And Michael and Peter and Robert, thank you as well. And so we're going to sort of slowly move on out of here. But thank you. And thank you to all the viewers that came today. We've come to the end of our show again. And Missy, again, thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the viewers. And y'all, we're getting subscribers already. It's wonderful. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss the Spiritual Toolkit, subscribe on New Thought Media Network, and you won't ever miss that. You'll get email reminders and text messages too, I believe. Next week, we're actually going to rebroadcast our premiere show because I'm going to be a guest on Thought Leader Thursdays from affiliated New Thought Network. And I had that planned before we started this show. So we're going to rebroadcast the premiere show, which is a lot of fun. If you missed it, take a look at that. And then the following week, which is July the 6th, we're going to have a very, very, very special guest. I guess sitting just as much as special as Missy is right now. But my mentor, my god sister, Martha Creek, is going to be with us.
Oh,
yeah, so I'm really excited about Martha being here. So at any rate, love to everyone. Missy, thank you. And give David my love as well. Thank you for being here. God bless everybody.